Hey, so a few days ago I had posted my spoiler-free review of Stranger Things season two, but tonight I kind of just wanted to talk about it, filled with spoilers, just so I can kind of have a discussion here and explain what I liked best about it, some bad things about it, basically just go more in depth with it. So first off, I want to say, so watching both seasons within a week, in such close proximity, I gotta say I enjoyed the second season a lot more than the first. Not to say that the first was bad, because it was amazing, but the second season just kicked it up like 10 notches, and I just loved the hell out of it, especially watching it all within one day. So the first thing I want to talk about is basically how we knew the characters at this time. They were all developed. We got to know them. We know their personalities. Will was finally back to normal again. Joyce was back to normal. Dustin, Mike, um, the kids were all the same. Still kind of griefing over LML, saving saving them, and not knowing what happened to her. And I mean, you could tell over this season that it was really starting to affect Mike, which it made for some great moments, especially their little reunion at the end. But so the big highlights of this season, first of all, the action scenes were great. The last few episodes just were completely tense, a lot more tense than the first one, like the very last episode with them sealing the gate, just searching in the upside down, Billy and everything like that. So the new characters, that's the one thing I want to talk about here. So this season added Billy, sorry, Max, or their little friend, their new friend here that they started stalking, somehow became friends with her. There's her stepbrother Billy, who's an asshole. There's Dr. Owens, played by Paul Reiser, and then there's Bob, played by Sean Astin. Those were the main introductions to the cast. So let's start with Paul Reiser here. So Dr. Owens, I was like, oh God, here we go. Here's another character that's a shithead, evil person like Dr. Matthew Modine's character, Dr. Brenner. There it is, from the first season. And I thought he was going to be just like that, which turned out to be completely wrong. Um, at the end of the day, he's saving their lives. He's helping. He's trying to understand what was going on, trying to protect them from the Demogorgons, the Demo Dogs, and everything else like that. And I wish he would have had a little bit more screen time. Billy is I guess I would actually call him the bigger antagonist of the series. Basically, because he's the abusive stepbrother of Max. It's implied that he's probably hit her before, and he just poses a complete threat that you never really knew what was going to happen. You could see that his dad hit him, and he was just like on edge, loose, hinged. He was a dick to Steve. Him and Steve got into that huge fight where he beat the shit out of Steve, um, and just a really bad person. And I'm glad, hopefully, by the end, that he either realized his ways or we'll just see more of him next season being an even bigger of a dick. The best introduction though to the cast was Sean Astin as Bob. Considering it's set in the 80s, that was a perfect casting choice. They even were able to throw in that little Goonies reference with the whole map and the what are they searching for treasured line. But I really liked him a lot. He looked the role, he felt the role, he needed to be there. And I wish he would have had a little bit more screen time too. But his death in episode 9, really made for one of the more emotional moments of the season. I was actually sad to see him go and wish he would have been there longer just because I love the character so much. He was a great boyfriend for Joyce, a great role model for Mike and Nancy, and Sean Astin he killed it. Um, the other thing that really needs to be talked about was the character relationships. Now, obviously, Jonathan and Nancy, where there's a lot of tension between those as far as like, are they gonna hook up? Are they not gonna hook up? Are they gonna get together throughout the entire first season? She was with Steve. He was the weird kid at first, but they met over the missing child, helping her brother. And this season, they have more to work with. They go exploring together. They end up meeting up with everybody. They go to that doctor's house, the hotel. She gets mad at Steve and basically says that our relation's bullshit. You're bullshit and all that, which really pissed him off. Then there's the relationship between Elle and Hopper, which honestly, probably one of the two best things about the season. Their relationship was amazing. He basically took her in, adopted her, kept her out in the woods, and the first time I saw them in the end of the first episode, I was like, holy crap, like this is awesome. There's a lot of moments between them, like the fights, the typical father daughter scenario of her not knowing, still trying to, I guess, live in society. Um, and him just making sure that she's safe, keeping her from everybody, having her isolated in this cabin, and then she's able to be mad with her mind and like shut off the TV, slam doors in his face. There's the scene, he's making her eat her vegetables and stuff. There's one scene where they get into a huge fight and he basically storms off. And then when they later meet up, he apologizes. He radios over the CB, basically just hoping that she's listening, apologizing to everything. And then there's the emotional scene in the car when she comes back from Chicago and he's just apologizing for everything. The new look, just saying bitchin'. Um, that was really cool. And then, of course, at the end where he gets the birth certificate, basically saying like, "This is official. You're my child now." And that really was it was very emotional for me, just because it was so sweet. And they're just two great characters who had some amazing interactions with each other. Um, so to change things up a bit, I'm going to get back to the good stuff, but I kind of want to just talk about the low points of the season. So the biggest gripe I had with this, and I mentioned it in my first spoiler for your review, is episode 7. Now, episode 7 basically focused just on 11, and then her sister, and she goes to Chicago and meets this weird girl who finds out is her sister, from the experiment, and she's like a criminal. She's she's got these weird friends, this dude with a huge ass mohawk. Just really really annoying characters. And not that I didn't want to see more than Elle. But and she's still a great character in the episode because she has the moral dilemma. But it's just the fact that the other characters were so freaking annoying. You didn't care about them at all. You didn't care if it was her sister. They were terrible people. They were criminals. She was willing to kill the one scientist. Like it just it shouldn't have been there, and it felt like a completely different show. Luckily, it made up in the last like 5 minutes of the episode or so, but I hated it. Really, the only terrible thing I can say about this season. Um, but to go back, I love the Ghostbusters thing in the second episode. That was pretty awesome. But the big thing to talk about in season 2, and the best character, is Steve. Now, if you remember Steve in season 1, he was a douche. He was originally dating Nancy. He didn't really care about Barb when she died. He wanted to go up with Nancy into the room, and Barb was like, "No, I just want to go home," and he couldn't give a shit. He got into the fight with Jonathan, over him trying to steal Nancy away, and then, in this season, she calls everything bullshit, and he goes on with his life. Luckily, they still have the interactions together. And you kind of feel bad, like, so at the end of season 1, I felt really bad for Jonathan because she was still with Steve. The end of this season, I felt really bad for Steve, because at the dance, he just drives by, he sees her, and he knows that they're together now, and he kind of just drives on. Um, and it was a sad moment. I'm not gonna lie, but he really is the highlight of this season because he went from being a complete douchebag to basically the adoptive parent slash babysitter of all the kids, because he's with them from what, like episode 6 or 8, 6, 7 or 8 on. He's with them. He's basically like taking Dustin under his wing. He's walking around with his bats, his nail bats, and he just has this great relationship with them. Like he gets knocked out, they pick him up, and Max is driving the car, and he's just like he looks up and he's like Nancy, while he's looking over to Mike, and Mike's just giving him that weird look. Um, but it was just he's such so much character development with him, just because he really like by the end of it he really cared about the kids. He was helping them. He still was scared of what they were doing because he didn't trust them for the most part, but his little relationship with Dustin was amazing. Even at the end with his hair, like putting up his hair in like the greaser type style, which leads me basically into the last thing I want to talk about, and that is the final scene, maybe like the final 15 minutes or so. Now we all kind of were waiting this show to happen for this moment to happen, and the season ends at the snowball dance. Um, they're all there. Mike, Lucas, Dustin, Max, Steve, Nancy, Mr. Clark. Everybody's there. Dustin's got his hair up, like I had mentioned. Max and Lucas are technically a thing now. He's trying to be all slick, and then she just asks him to dance, and then they go. Dustin goes up to the popular girls who turn him down, and then he goes up to another girl. They just kind of brush him off, and then he's just sitting over like looking at the dance floor like what's wrong with me, and he just looks so depressed. And then Nancy looks over and she's just like there's a moment the way that the camera is where she just looks at him with that kind of like face like the pouty dog face, like feeling really bad for him. So she goes over to the stands when he's sitting on the bleachers crying, basically, and she just asks him to dance, and that was a really really sweet moment, not only for him but for her as well. Basically saying like you were always my favorite of Mike's friends, and I probably watched that scene like 10 times just because I love it so much. Cyndi Lauper's playing in the background. They're all slow dancing. She makes the other girls jealous. They're all looking over like, like, um, and after that, she basically just tells him to get closer. Let's dance. Just keep going, move into the flow of the music. Then of course the one of the best scenes is well, first Joyce and um, Hopper, sorry, are outside, basically smoking like they used to, but they couldn't get in trouble. Joyce promised that she would give Will some space, so instead of being inside, she's just sitting right outside the school, making sure that nothing's gonna happen. And Mike's still looking around now that everybody else is dancing, and then all of a sudden, Elle walks into the room, into the dance, and at that moment, I think everybody kind of just like their faces perked up. You couldn't just help but either smile or like happy cry at that scene, simply because this is something we've been waiting for. There's been what like three attempted kisses I think with them so far, but this time like she goes up to him, he goes up to her, he's like, "Oh, you look beautiful." He's like, "Do you want to dance?" I don't know how, but let's learn together here. And they're just going and going, and then all of a sudden they kiss finally, and everybody's like really happy. Lucas kisses Max, but everybody wanted to see Mike and Elle together. We all knew that they were going to. And then of course the very very final couple like minute or so where they walk out the school and everything turns upside down, which basically says, okay, well season three is definitely happening, so let's do this. Preparing us here, saying that it's something still out there. The gates were closed, but something is still out there, and I really just can't wait to see more. Hopefully, Mike and Elle will be in a better situation now. I don't think anybody knows that Hopper's her technical father now. If I'm mistaken, I don't think anybody knows that yet. So that'll be very interesting for them to introduce to the rest of the characters and how those interactions will work out. But either way, I love the series. I love the series. I love the season. I love pretty much every moment of the season except for that episode. The music was great. The characters so much more developed. Like I said, Steve was the real highlight of the show, of the season. And then Bob, just everything about it is great. So I figured I'd post this video by this time. Everybody who really wanted to watch it would have already finished it by now. Other people are finishing it up. So as soon as you finish the season, please check out this video. I want to hear your thoughts on it. What did you agree with? Do you think Steve is finally redeemed? Is he gonna go after Nancy again? Does Dustin think that Nancy is into him because she's dancing with him, like typical movie fashion? Please let me know. I'd love to hear it. But other than that, you guys, I hope you enjoyed season 2, and I hope you enjoyed this video.